I've been talking about this the last 2 days now on the show of is there a way to extrapolate and maybe we make it a 8-team playoff? And then how do we get through all of the hurdles here? What do you think of the possibility of that happening where we go from 4 to 8, and how could you see that actually working?
It is the most frequently asked question of me during my now 4 football seasons as a conference commissioner. So understand that topic, in my view, will never go away. Mm-hmm. It has not been the subject of planning, strategizing, here's where we go, among the commissioners who lead. I'll just go back in my history. I was commissioner at the 1AA level, and you saw migration steadily from 4 to 8 to 16 to 24. So I think there will always be pressure on increasing the number, but there has to be a balance of that conversation. Right now, the feeling is we've struck that balance with the knowledge that there's always going to be tension around who is in and who is left out.
But if I had 18, let's say all 5 of the power conferences are represented, and then I had 3 at large after that, I don't want to add more games, and I don't know if we can get around the conference championship game, or if you have that. I just think this weekend would be unbelievable if you started the playoffs this weekend, and you had, right, 8 versus 1, you had Notre Dame against Ohio State. Like, I think college football is missing out on storylines, Greg. You know, I just do.
We have marvelous storylines. In fact, some of the storylines I wish I could just not pay attention to. But let's just go back substantively.
Okay.
From the Southeastern Conference perspective, we were the first to have a conference championship game. Ours is 1 versus 4. That's not an infrequent high-level game for us. We think it's special, and it becomes the issue of what is the give. Where do you give? Where do you yield? And I was not in the commissioner's chair when the college football playoff was created, but the reality that we have to acknowledge is many of my universities go right into final exams next week. We still have a bowl system that, from our perspective, works. It's evolving. We work to conclude things prior to the start of the spring semester so that Monday championship game date is intentional. We also have dynamics with holidays and NFL games. And could something someday fit? Sure. But the discussion of what's the give? What do we give up? Do we give up a regular season game to accommodate 4 more teams? That seems unwise for what college football means to our campuses and our communities, and frankly to the participants, because our student athletes were clear they'd rather play 12 than 11 when we went to the standard season. So it is. There's more complexity. There are more pieces to that conversation than maybe a parent would just go to 8. And I'll tell you, if you ever went to 8. The next question is, when are you going to go to 6?
I know that.
Every bracket exists. That's why we're in a startup of 4 that's worked pretty well.
But, Commissioner, it feels like money trumps everything here, whether we admit to it or not. You know, the bottom line, you know, everybody, it feels like that we're increasing the number of teams that can make the playoffs or do make the playoffs. Whereas college football, what do you have? 3% of the teams are going to make a playoff. The NFL has 37% of those teams making the playoffs. And I know you're going to say, well, we have bowl games. Okay, those are nice. But these other, leagues, these other sports, you actually get a chance to play for a championship. You only have 4 schools to get a chance to play.
Yeah, and it puts great rate on the regular season. So I won't say we just have bowl games. How about that deal? I will say that some of those NFL teams run into the playoffs with 9-7 records, 8-8 records.
Yeah.
When you walk through my football season this year, the SEC, for the first time in college football playoff history, is a conference with 8 teams in the top 25. There's a rigor in our schedule. There's an intensity around our competition that sometimes boils over, but I think that provides those storylines in great, great meaning. Even into early November, where people still have opportunities perhaps to move up. One of the oddities that we're dealing with, in fact, I was fully prepared for this question, so I'll just tee it up, is you see just repeats. Alabama's been in this position each year of the playoff. Clemson's moved into that. that position. And does that circumstance cause people to view things differently? That's one of those rhetorical questions I ask myself, but we ought to think about something like that.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.